Hi, I'm Marcia Lehman, and I'm a Knox County Master Gardener. Today, we will be pruning Kerria japonica, which is commonly called Japanese rose. And as you might guess from the name, this is in the rose family. It's not a native with a name like Kerria japonica. It comes from Asia. But a couple nice things about it. It does not have thorns, and it is not susceptible to those diseases that usually attack our regular roses. So it grows like a cane shrub, so we'll be pruning it like a cane shrub. And in fact, we're going to work on this plant. But I wanted to show both because these were planted at the same time. Can't really explain why they're so different in size and growth habit. I guess this spot is just a little sweeter than the other, but they were both planted at about the same time 2 years ago. This is what I would kind of expect, so this one's gotten some type of extra boost, and we're going to work on this one. What we will do, since it grows as a cane shrub, is start at the bottom and snip a cane and pull out that entire length. And then we really don't want this to be quite this tall. So we will, when we've thinned it out a bit, do a little reduction, some heading cuts. And heading cuts should then also give us a little bit of additional lateral growth. So let me put down the clipboard. I refer you to the PDF handout for additional references. But basically, when I scouted this, I didn't see 4Ds. As we get in a little closer, we might find something: dead, diseased, damaged, or dysfunctional. We are likely to have some crossing rubbing branches. And so basically this is going to be a thinning job, and then we'll make a little mini assessment and continue. The way I'm going to attack this shrub, since A, it is a cane shrub and we need to remove some canes, and B, we do want to reduce the height, is I'm going to pick, and in this case I've picked this stem, this cane, because it's one of the tallest ones. That's over 6 feet. And I'm going to follow it all the way to the bottom and make one cut as close to the ground as possible. So we'll pause while I go to the ground to make the cut. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to pick some of these taller canes and just remove them. And that does two things. It takes out height and it thins it for airflow. Okay, so I have followed this cane and I'm coming all the way down here as close to the ground as I can possibly get. And with one cut, I will take out that much. What we're going to continue to do is to pick some of those tallest ones and again come down and snip close to the ground. And in this case, this branch also had a fair amount of lateral growth on it, so that's going to thin out quite a bit. So now I can be a little more selective on some of the ones that are just big, long, single stems. And we're just going to continue to do that until we've thinned out. If you can zoom in here in the center, we're holding back, but you can just see how many canes are in here, and we need to thin this. This does not have enough airflow, and while they are not susceptible to rose diseases, it does need a little more airflow. So we're just going to continue to work on removing some of these canes, some of the taller ones, and then we'll come back and show you what it looks like when we're finished. But it is the same process repeated over and over. Find a long stem, follow it all the way down, cut it off as close to the ground. We have worked on this shrub pretty extensively, and the primary thing we took out were these single canes, single stems that really didn't have much branching on them, and our count was 35 of these. So imagine taking 35 stems out of that shrub, but that's what we did. In the process of doing that, we found very little, but right here we did find some dead, and so we made a cut. We came back a little further and removed the dead, but only 1 or 2 snips like that. Then we did, in the process, and one of them was actually a mistake on my part, we did take out a few stems that did have lateral branches like this one, but part of the reason we took this one was, as we were looking at it and we got down near the ground, the bottom, that's about the bottom 4 inches on this side, and more like almost 8 inches on this side, where it's got significant discoloring. And so my concern was, while they're not susceptible to a lot of disease, this might be the beginning of disease. So we took that out, but we had a grand total of 5 of these cuts. So 5 cuts with lateral branches, 35 single canes, and then we have a highly technical term, but this is what I call wonky growth. This is just not natural growth. And if we let that thicken up, it's never going to straighten up, and it will just become a place that will eventually sustain damage. So for the overall health of the shrub, we'll take that out. So let's look at the shrub. We're not quite done. If we compare the before to this has been thinned out substantially because we took 40 stems out, 35 plus 5. Now we still want to do a little bit of height reduction. And so that gets to be a bit of a challenge when what we have is a fairly long stem and all the branching is at the top, and yet we want to shorten it. So how did this happen? Well, this is because we had so many stems in there, and the only place it got enough sunshine to start to branch was at the edge. But we'll cut this back at a branch node, and I'm going to take it to about shoulder height. We'll cut that back to branch node, and the expectation now is that it will put out some additional growth and start to put on some lateral branches. So just a few heading cuts here to reduce the overall height and to encourage some more lateral growth. And now that we've thinned it out, we should get enough sunshine into the plant that it can start to produce more lateral shoots. This one, oh, there we go. So now we've got this thing back to my shoulder height, maybe just a little above that. So in the process, we found very little dead. I mean, we were looking for it, but most of the dead we found was itty bitty little pieces. The thing I showed you was the largest piece. It really was a thinning for airflow. And as we showed you in the beginning, we would find a really tall cane. We followed it all the way to the bottom and made the cut as close to the ground as possible. So if it's possible to just scan the camera around to our pile of debris, here are the 5 cuts that had branches, lateral branches, and here's the pile of debris that were really just single canes. All that came out of that shrub. I would say even I'm surprised at the volume of material we have here, but I think, remember that pruning stimulates growth, so this plant is going to put out additional new growth. It blooms in the spring, so having been pruned now, it will start to create the buds for next spring's flowers, and this thing should be just as loaded next spring as it was this spring. That concludes pruning the Kerria japonica. We hope you learned something today, and we thank you for joining us.